Today we are going to talk about Black Mirror Season 2, Episode 1. Be right back. This is a sad story about a woman named Martha. After losing her husband, she got herself an android that imitates her husband, but in the end, it still can't replace the love she once had for her husband. In a heavy downpour, Martha brings coffee for her beloved husband, Ash, who is totally glued to his phone and doesn't care about his wife and her effort, but that doesn't diminish the love Martha has for him. Upon returning to their home, Martha starts to prepare for late dinner while Ash is once again obsessed with his mobile phone. Martha had no choice but to take her husband's childhood photos and use it to connect with him. During the conversation, Ash talks about the heartbreaking moments of his childhood and the helplessness of having all his father's photos locked up in the attic by his mother after his father's death. This not only evoked Martha's sympathy, but also ignited a spark of love between the two. On the next day, due to a new project, Martha had to stay at home to finish her work, and Ash had to return the borrowed van all by himself. But he didn't come home after a long time, and it's already late evening. Worried about her husband, Martha tried to call Ash's phone countless times, only to find that nobody picked up the phone on the other side. The car rental company also told her that the car had not been returned yet. At that moment, the lights from the police car flashing outside the house, and when Martha saw the police at the front, she realized that her worst fears has happened. The loss of a loved one is a painful ordeal. During the funeral, Martha's best friend Sarah is attending as well. She, just like Martha, has experienced the pain of losing someone she loved before, but her lament doesn't go well with Martha. While Sarah doesn't realize that Martha was irritated, she even goes as far as to suggest Martha to sign up for a software that can simulate the voice of the deceased as Sarah used it to overcome her grief back then. But Martha, who was in a very bad mood, could no longer tolerate such an inappropriate suggestion. She blows up and rejects Sarah's offer. Martha then returned home alone. Longing for her husband, she climbed up the attic and looked through Ash's photos. By looking through the wonderful memories she had before with Ash, Martha suddenly felt miserable again. She later found out that Sarah had signed her up for the software without her permission, and a message from someone pretending to be Ash pop up in her email. The grief of losing the love of her life and the anger towards Sarah's selfish decision set Martha on fire. She blasted Sarah over the phone for her insults to Ash, but Sarah calmly informs Martha that the intelligent software that can read all of Ash's messages on social networks and imitate his speech will become more real like Ash if it is given more access to his private information. But Martha refused to accept the suggestion. As the days go by, Martha slowly accepts Ash's departure. But on one day, Martha suddenly felt nauseous at work. She took a pregnancy test and found out that she was pregnant. Feeling anxious and confused, she called her sister for help. But her sister, who was busy with her family, didn't pick up her call. Feeling helpless, Martha could not resist and reply the message from Virtual Ash. Upon receiving the familiar reply from the software, Martha could not help but cry with joy, and she went ahead and told Virtual Ash about she getting pregnant. Virtual Ash helped Martha to alleviate her anxiety. This made Martha to turn down her sister's request for a visit, as all she wants to do now is just talking to Ash. Soon, the text communication was no longer enough to satisfy Martha's need. She needed the comfort of a voice and the realism that comes with the voice. So, following the software's instructions, Martha uploaded all of Ash's video footage. The software was able to mimic Ash's voice and communication style through self-learning. Martha was astounded by this, and with Ash's voice as her companion, Martha was able to get through her pregnancy period. She shared the sights and the joys of her life with the Virtual Ash. The baby grows healthily, and Martha shares her joy with Virtual Ash when she able to hears the baby's heartbeat. However, she accidentally broke her phone, and the sudden disconnect in the communication makes Martha extremely nervous. She immediately rushes home to switch to another phone, and when she hears the voice of Ash again, Martha feels like they've been parted for a very long time, and she can't stand the stress of losing her loved one again, especially not when she's pregnant. In order to avoid further accidents, Virtual Ash makes a suggestion, a pricey one, but one that tempts Martha. It turns out that the software has a more advanced version that allows Virtual Ash to have a real body. A few days later, the package arrived at her home. Martha opened it up, and there was a human-shaped figure curled up inside. It feels soft and looks strange. Following the instructions from the Virtual Ash, Martha filled up the bathtub with water and placed the human-shaped figure into the water. After pouring in the electrolytes, the Virtual Ash on the phone began to transfer itself into the android. Before long, a new and young body stood in front of Martha, virtually identical to Ash, except that he looked younger and better. Martha couldn't help but start touching the android, whose skin was so soft and smooth that Martha felt like she was touching the real Ash. After downing a large bottle of wine, Martha took off her clothes. Just as she is about to get sexy with Ash, she realizes that Android Ash has not activated his sexual functions yet. To satisfy Martha's lust, Android Ash immediately activates his built-in program and gain access to a vast collection of erotic videos. Android Ash gives Martha a night of pleasure she has never experienced before. The next day, Martha's sister suddenly came to visit her. Martha couldn't help but hide the Android Ash, but her sister still spotted a man's shirt in the bathroom, which led her to believe that Martha had already moved on and started a new relationship. But it is actually the opposite, as this incredibly sweet Android Ash that not able to get angry and even sleeps with his eyes open becomes more and more difficult for Martha to deal with because she soon realized that he is just a robot trying to imitate Ash, that he does not have any normal human emotions, and he does not even know what to do when Martha is feeling angry and in pain. This is not the kind of Ash that Martha wants. Martha kicked Ash downstairs, and he went out into the darkness, but what Martha didn't expect is that Ash stood in front of the house all night. It turns out that his area of movement is limited to 25 meters from the activation site, and he can only travel further if accompanied by the owner, which is Martha. Martha then takes the Android Ash to the edge of a cliff and tells him to jump off the cliff. But when the Android Ash going to do what she is told, Martha broke down because she knows that the real Ash will hesitate and afraid. In order to please Martha, the Android Ash starts acting scared all over again, which puts Martha on the verge of a nervous breakdown because Martha has been trying to treat him like the real Ash and has given him all her love, but only to get an android that merely trying to please her. Time flies, and Martha's child has grown up, while the Android Ash, who doesn't age, doesn't get angry, and doesn't even have a sense of self-awareness, is locked up in house attic by Martha. It is only on special days that Martha will visit him, and now Android Ash is just like the old photos that have been kept away, just another old memories locked in the attic.